All right, welcome to the Yang Gang Roundtable podcast. Today I am your host. My name is Jeremy. Today we are joined by UBI advocates Angelo and Ariel. And our special guest today is Grassroots organizer, volunteer, Yang campaign chauffeur, and Andrew Yang's personal bodyguard, Bill Hodder. So, Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for taking time out of your day, man. We were discussing it before we went live here, but can you give us a rundown of how you and Andrew Yang's paths crossed and how you eventually became his chauffeur and bodyguard?
Sure. So I had been interested in UBI for quite a while. In 2014, I saw a video, Humans Need Not Apply, and then I read a book called The Second Machine Age. And I'm a kindergarten teacher. I've been an elementary school teacher for 24 years. So I am invested in the future. And, so I was worried about what type of jobs were going to be available in the year 2030 and beyond. But how I ran into Andrew Yang is I am also a competitive jiu-jitsu athlete. And I have friends who fight in the UFC, the Ultimate Fight Championship, and that are professional MMA fighters. And my very dear friend, Leslie Smith, is a UFC fighter, or was a UFC fighter. And 2 years ago, Andrew tweeted support for her. So she was trying to start a fighters union because it's rough. If you're a professional athlete, it's not an easy job. And they need to get some union representation. And so Leslie tried to start a union. It was squashed by Dana White, who is the president of the UFC, because he's got a friend in the White House. And Andrew defended her. So 2 years ago, I was like, oh my God, I want to defend, this guy, he's running for president, great. And then I saw that he was a UBI advocate and he was worried about automation and in the future. I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. So I bought the book the next day. I read it within a couple days. I wound up meeting him 2 years ago this month. And it was just a small boardroom and just 12 people sitting around talking. And I said, yeah, I'm in. I knew I was in from the moment that he tweeted support for my friend, but just adding in that he was UBI advocate and worried about automation just kind of solidified the deal. So I started volunteering right away. So I created one of the first Yang Gang Facebook groups, and they asked me to help others create Yang Gangs across the country. So, and then it just took off from there. So we started doing tabling events in San Francisco. We had the first big rally in California, in San Francisco. I had Leslie Smith was the one who introduced him. And then I had someone asked me if I wanted to do a fundraising dinner for Silicon Valley biotech engineers. And I said, well, I've never done that before, but let's give it a go. And we wound up raising about $15,000 for him, close to it. And that was the night that I showed him how to do a rear naked choke. So I wound up being in a bunch of memes. So it just kept on going up and up. And so I kept volunteering, and I was in Iowa for the month. And like I told you guys earlier, they asked me to be the chauffeur, or actually the title was backup driver. So there was a 19-day bus tour in Iowa in January, and someone needed to drive the follow vehicle, right? Because the bus can't go everywhere. So I said, sure. And I wound up 19 days, breakfast, lunch, and dinner pretty much with the team. And Andrew, of course, being an important part of that team. And as far as the bodyguard, and I'll go ahead, I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm going to go ahead, I'll tell you the whole story, edit if you need. So we were in, and if you can hear, those are chickens, if you hear them. I got him to a hotel. There was a rally, and he was being followed by local media and staff, and they were all kind of tugging on him. And I was standing in the back just trying to get out of the way. And he kind of walks all the way across the room to me and he says, Bill, do you remember the Bodyguard movie? And I said, with Kevin Costner? He's like, yeah, and Whitney Houston. I'm like, yeah, I remember that. And he's like, let's recreate it. And I was just like, okay. And so he brings me back to where he was being interviewed by a local news organization. And Zach, the campaign manager, looks at me and he's like, Bill, what are we doing? And I'm just like, Andrew asked me to. So Andrew then he jumps in my arms, but he's all sprawled out, like, and it's like, it's hard to hold somebody when there's, like their arms are like spread like this, right? So I was trying to find the balance, like, and I didn't want to drop him. And so Zach takes the picture, and he's just kind of like, and I didn't want to get him in trouble. Like, I was like, oh, this is not another whipped cream incident. Like, I don't know, like, I don't want to be a part of anything that's like negative. So now I walk him out. So at this time, he's like, you're my bodyguard, so walk me out. So I'm walking him out, and we're getting ready for him to speak. And he's on his phone, and he says, Bill, we did it wrong. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm not supposed to be all sprawled out. He's like, look. And he showed me the picture of the Bodyguard movie title screenshot. So, and he's like, let's redo it. And everyone's like, oh, we'll do it after. And he's like, no, let's go right now. So it's like we're walking back to the room, and Zach is still in that room, and he's looking at me like, Bill. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm just following what Andrew is asking me to do. So we get the picture, and Zach looks at me and he's like, Bill, he's like, we are not tweeting this out. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm fine with that. I'm fine. The next day, I'm following, I'm in my vehicle in the Escalade, and all of a sudden my phone is blowing up because he tweeted it out. And when we got to the next event, like, Zach was like, it was good. And he's like, everybody had to approve it. Like, he went all around. So Zach and Eric and Ethan, they all had to approve it. And so that's how I became the bodyguard. That's the bodyguard story.
That's great, man. What was there like at least maybe it was just my perception, maybe it really wasn't the case, but was there some kind of like tension between Andrew Yang's spontaneous nature and Zach Grauman, like trying to like always wrangle him back in?
Oh yeah, like yes, but I think like in a good way, like Andrew, and I've mentioned this before in different groups, he's not childish, he's childlike. And like, I work with children, right? So I need to also be childlike, which means like you're open, like you think the best in all people, and you're not really worried that someone might have like a nefarious plan for you, or it's like something might not go over as well as you might think. And like Zach was like he's like the mother like we all need, right? Like whoa, we shouldn't do this. And Andrew was always pushing the envelope, and like I said earlier, one of the stops we were in a bar, and there was a very large man who was doing multiple shots and talking about what a big farm was, and kind of quizzing Andrew and trying to put him on the spot. And Andrew was like, I want to talk to this guy. And Zach is like, I don't see the upside on this. And but Andrew, he was going to get his way there. So we just like had to protect him as best we could. So Zach is like very integral, I felt, to keeping Andrew safe, because Andrew he will push the envelope, right? Like, just like the whole picture with the the whole bodyguard picture thing that happened. I don't like, is it the best thing for a campaign? I don't know, but like I want to have an authentic leader, right? I want someone who is real and open and can be vulnerable, and who also likes to have fun. So So I think it was more than just Zach too. Like everyone was around him. Like, okay, I don't know if we should do this, but like Andrew was like, I'm just going to do it. Like we had to pull him away from people, like move, because he won't stop talking to people. You know, like we had lines. I don't know how long, like 100-foot long, hundreds of feet, people waiting to talk to him. And you know, some people would take advantage. You know, like they were supposed to just get a quick picture, but you know, they all of a sudden like they're demanding them to sign their hat. And it's good that Zach's there to say no, right? Because Andrew would do it, but Zach says no, and so you know, some people weren't able to take advantage of him. So you know, we need to keep him safe for sure.
I just think that speaks volumes about his character. Just he cares about people. He wants to be like a human being.
Yeah.
I think that's just like the humanity of it all. Nothing is like calculated or arranged. It's all just like natural and human, and like you said, just this kind of aura that he has.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. There was a time when we were in we're getting gas, and so it's like a convenience store, and Andrew was behind a woman, and it was getting close to caucus day, and she turned around and looked at him, and she's like, "Oh, I know who you are." And he's like, "Oh, hi." And he goes, "Are you going to caucus?" She's like, "Oh no." And he's like, "Okay." Like, I had been knocking on doors, like getting people, you know, I need you to caucus, please caucus. You know, it's really important that you go to this caucus site. And Andrew's like, okay. And it was perfect because like, that wasn't his role. Like in that moment, like it's not his role to try to convince someone at the convenience store to caucus. But yeah, there's a lot of, and as you probably know, if you followed what happened in Iowa, there was a lot of like the whole caucus idea was a little silly. I mean, as a person who was like knocking on doors before I started being a driver, man, just below zero temperatures, knocking on doors, and then in the end, like not getting a fair shake. It was somewhat heartbreaking, but it was a very important lesson that you know, like only being in Iowa could teach you. Let's just put it that way.
So I have to ask, was there any other candidates that Andrew just couldn't get along with but would try?
You know, I think it's more like who didn't really want to get along with him as opposed to him getting along. You know, he loves everybody. And, you know, even Amy Klobuchar, who was kind of, you know, I don't know, like, I think like in the debates, she kind of like rolled her eyes at him one time. And, but even he won her over in the end, I feel. Like, I think when they landed I saw them in New Hampshire. So I drove them to the airport on the last night in Iowa, and they went directly to New Hampshire. And when they got there, I saw a video of he and Amy hugging, and I just thought, all right, like if he and Amy Klobuchar are hugging, and now she's calling him her friend, like he's made big strides.
You know, it's funny because we always thought that was like when she called him a friend and stuff like that. It's like, oh, she's just trying to win political points.
Yeah. I mean, she is a politician, right? So I'm not sure how, you know, authentic she was in that, but like I think like in the moment that like Andrew's ability to break people down to their basic humanity level is unmatched, right? Like no, I don't think anyone in the campaign can be as real as Andrew could be, and even, you know, we ran into, like, of course, you know, Bernie Sanders campaign, they weren't so kind to us, but he was being kind, right? So he's the leader of our movement, and, you know, we just had this humanity first approach to anybody who didn't agree with us. And I think he got some criticism for it. But for me, like, that's where I'm gonna do. Like I have a job, right? I'm a kindergarten teacher, so I know that I have an important role in my community. And a big part of that role is to project kindness and compassion and empathy. And my friends would say, well, Andrew doesn't, he's not a good enough fighter. Like, he's not dirty enough. Like, he's got to, like, this is politics. And I was just thinking, like, I am a kindergarten teacher, but I am also a jiu-jitsu fighter, right? And, like, I have friends that fight in the UFC, and, like, I know how to fight. I know how to fight, but I'm going to fight with honor, right? And I'm going to fight with respect to my opponent. And I mean, Andrew's also, he's a black belt in Taekwondo. So, and I feel that he also embodies this kind of a warrior spirit. But
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's a black belt in Taekwondo. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever spar with him?
Well, he wanted to. Like, he said that it would be great. He would come at, like, after a couple different town halls. I want to give him a high five, and he would come up to me and he would be like, bam, bam. He would like jab me in the chest, like using me as a punching bag kind of thing. And one time, like, I walked into, I parked the Escalade, and I walked into this event. It was a theater, but my glasses were, like, it was super cold outside and warm inside, so my glasses, like, fogged up. And I walked in, and, like, Andrew was there, and there were a bunch of people, and they all kind of, like, looked at me like I was, like, an abominable snowman. And he just came up to me, like, he body checked me, And then, like, when I dropped him off in the airport in Iowa, I remember he kind of gave me like he was like kind of what, 30 seconds? I'm like, if you're lucky, so yeah, it was definitely a lot of bonding that happened with Andrew and myself over that time. And yeah, like, when people say, I think, like, anyone who has had a lot of time with Andrew, like, someone thinks that you're going to just, like, go to the White House with him. I'm like, it doesn't actually work like that. But yeah, like, I feel that, like, jiu-jitsu in particular is something that would be great if more kids did it across the country. So if he said, Bill, you could be, like, Secretary of Education. I'm like, what about Secretary of Jiu-Jitsu? Like, that would be great. Yeah. Like, if we could get Andrew to start doing jiu-jitsu and talk about martial arts and how it teaches respect and humility, and it helps keep you safe and healthy, and it's kind of like a spiritual practice on top of the physical practice, I'm in. So no, but I sent you a picture of him choking me, so, like, I consider that, like, sparring a little bit.
Can you walk us through that moment, how that picture came to be?
Okay, so this took place at our so it was a fundraising dinner for the biotech engineers in the Silicon Valley. And so the person who made the Impossible Burger was there. Got $1,000 off that guy, by the way. And so we planned a few different things. So one of them was a kids' town hall. So I had a bunch of kids, my students, and they were asking questions. And if you see, there's a few videos out there of this. Minnie Yang was, if you've ever seen the boy who goes by Minnie Yang. So his mother. Yeah, so his mother is Tyrene Pamstein, if you follow her on Twitter. So he was my kindergarten student. So we had that, and Leslie was there. Leslie Smith, the UFC fighter, was there. We had a few other jiu-jitsu people. And I had said, well, what would be great is we show Andrew how to do a rear naked choke. I think it would be a fun thing to do. So so he, of course, he's into it, like this is, it's nothing new for him, right? And Zach was there too, and so like Zach was approving, and so actually he was talking to a bunch of people, and they knew that they had to go. Zach was like, "We're gonna have to go," So that when it's time to go, it's like Andrew still needs like a half hour to talk to people. But I said, "All right, we're gonna show you how to do a joke." So Leslie was there, and she was kind of like coaching him how to do it, and everyone like surrounded us, and it was really like the moment where like, okay, I thought it was fun, right? But I didn't realize that I was now going to be in thousands of memes across like social media platforms, right? Like, but because like there's one of me as like the Terminator who's choking out like automation, and then they put like all the candidates on my head, right? And even like Joe Biden, it was like, "Say it ain't so, Joe." Like I'm just choking Joe Biden, and like Joe's like, "It ain't so, it ain't so, it ain't so."
I remember that one.
Yeah. So I think like for me, like I'm like, my thing is like, I'm a kindergarten teacher. I just also happen to be a competitive jiu-jitsu athlete, and so the ability or the opportunity to share both of my passions with Andrew, that he's also super passionate about. Like his kids were my age, or were my students' age. He has a child that has autism. I have students that have autism. So it just seemed like just like the perfect fit for me. Yeah, that was a great moment, great night. It was a lot of fun.
What was the atmosphere like at those fundraising events, like compared to more like the grassroots town hall, or like were they roughly like the same, or was there any difference between them?
That's a good question. So when he first came, I had already seen him, I think, like 3 times, but I wasn't sure. Like, he knew that I was organizing it, and I had talked to him a few times, but you just don't know if he actually knows who you are. Like he knows my name, but like he showed up and he's like, "Bill," like he comes up and he gives you like a big hug. I'm like, "Okay, I guess you know who I am." So I just wanted, like, I'm fine. Like I've met, famous people before, so I'm not like intimidated. I'm just wondering, like, do you know who I am? Like, oh, okay, we do. So it immediately went to, okay, like this is like having a friend over for a party. And we immediately like took some pictures, and there was food, and so the town hall, we had a town hall where he gave his stump speech. It was a really beautiful setting. The weather was perfect. We had Mount Diablo in the background, and I can share some pictures with you later if you'd like. But then afterwards, it was more like just like a party, right? But everyone was trying to get his attention, right? Like a lot of these people have, specific things that they are passionate about, right? Like my friend who hosted the party, it was his house, and he worked for NASA, and he started his own company, and he was just, what is your opinion on the Impossible Burger? Like I don't really have deep thoughts on that subject. Like I actually eat them. It tastes good, but like I don't know like what I could do to help support that industry. I do know it's like a part of the future, right? Like these, like biotech engineering is certainly something, is a growing field, a growing industry. So it was basically like a bunch of like math and science experts, right? Like having like kind of like technical discussions. And me, like I was like the host, I was like walking around making sure everyone was happy, like they had food, they knew where to put their coats, and so I was just like facilitating. And then when it came after his stump speech is when I started like pressing people for money, right? So because I had said, well, the max is $2,800, so you can't give me any more than that. so should I just put you down for that? Like, so I was trying to, raise as much money as possible. So like my brain was there, and we had books and flyers and so we were handing out stuff. So compared to a typical town hall, it was kind of similar, but just like an intimate house setting. So imagine just like a house party at like a really cool house with a bunch of science, math people. That's what it was like, pretty much.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. As one thing I thought was really cool about the campaign, they very frequently would live stream those private fundraisers. So you did get to see like an inside look. But yeah, I was always curious of what happened after those fundraisers, after they turned the cameras off. Like, what went down?
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. And then like at the end, when I didn't really get to talk to him too much throughout the whole evening, but when he was leaving, I tried to go up and I was like, oh, this is my chance to tell him thank you, right? And so as I was ready to tell him thank you, he came up to me and hugged me. He's like, Bill, thank you so much. This was great. What a great party. And like I was trying to thank him, right? And like I couldn't even like thank him because he was thanking me, right? And so then like he put his arm around me and like we were walking to his car, and then I told him, as a kindergarten teacher, I pretty much wear a cape to school. Like 3% of kindergarten teachers are male. So I already know that I have an important role. But now like the message that I have is like going to the country and the world. I'm like all inspired because like all of the things that I really care about, I'm like passing it on to a person who is going to amplify that message. So like for me, like it's such an honor to be a part of a movement that truly wants to make the world a better place, and not just as some kind of platitude, but as like here's how we could do it, right? And to have a plan of action. I want to be on that team, right? I want to be on the team that has an action plan to make the world better. Like I do it in my classroom, I can do it in my community, I can do it in my jiu-jitsu academy, but now I want to bring it to the nation and to the world. And Andrew Yang is like the perfect vehicle for us, not just me, for everybody, right?
Right. Do you think that there's a way that now that Andrew Yang, he's no longer running, but his message is resonating now more than ever, especially in the times of this pandemic? So what is the best way forward for us right now? I'm looking at these congressional candidates.
Yeah. I definitely feel that the focus is now shifting to down ballot, candidates at the state level, at the city level, at the county level, at the school board. Like if we are really going to make this a movement, it can't just be at the president, right? At the federal, even the federal level. So for me, I think, okay, where can I help? What makes sense for me? And the idea of helping people directly is always like the most interesting for me. So like calling people with these for the $250 microgrants, like that's my focus. And of course, like I still will, promote on my social media platforms, Mike, and, I was doing it for Heidi and Jason Herzog and, all the new candidates that I know that Humanity Forward just endorsed yesterday. So I don't even know who some of them are. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check these people out too. So not only, I think one of the things, like since Andrew suspended his campaign, like his message is resonating even more now, right, with the pandemic that is taking place. So when I got back to California, my friends were like, oh, wow, like we didn't. Oh, so by the way, I don't know if I told you this, but I've been on a sabbatical. I went to 27 countries this year. So I traveled all around the world in a backpack. And so when I came back, my friends were like, wow, okay, we didn't realize that like all what you were saying in 2018 and 2019, like it's all like coming true now. I'm like, yeah, like look at our institutions that are failing. So we have government and politics and healthcare and education, technology. I mean, all of the things that we rely on are are starting to collapse. And one way in which we can help alleviate some of those problems is with giving people direct cash. And so my friends were like, Bill, you came back and I got $1,200 in my account. So thank you very much. I'm like, yeah, like I wish it could be more, but like people were starting to talk to me. It's like, I'm not sure how you guys are with your different social groups, but a lot of people just kind of looked at me and said, oh, that's cute. You know, you're going for the underdog, you know, Andrew Yang. Like they didn't really think of it as like, no, this is a movement and it's not stopping if he doesn't win the presidency this year. Like it's still going to continue.
Yeah, exactly.
And, yeah.
He had all the logic and the reasoning and the intelligence behind everything that he says. And to say, and the only thing that I think that he didn't have was the name recognition. And
right.
Were you in on it? Did you see the way that the news media were treating him at that point? Were you in on those things? Like, did they edit some stuff out? Did they not give
hang
it
on
time?
one second. I'm just going to close my window here. I've got chickens and chainsaws out here. Okay, better.
Chickens with
Are the chickens wielding chainsaws?
The chickens are wielding chainsaws outside my window here. Yes. Wow. Like so unfair, right? Like, wow. Like you're leaving Andrew off of graphics, and you're just not including him in groups of when you're talking about presidential candidates. And I did hear that. But like for me, like I just didn't have space in my brain to fight that. Like we have a message. We're going forward. Like I mean, that's one of the campaign slogan, right? It's like whatever anyone is trying to do to us, it doesn't matter. Like we're going forward. And in a way, it's kind of like my strategy when I'm competing in jiu-jitsu. Like a lot of people like to think, you look at your opponent and you study your opponent and look at what they're good at and what they're going to do. And like for me, I'm like, I don't care what you're going to do. You're going to have to deal with me, right? And I think like Andrew kind of had like a similar. I know people wanted him to fight more in that arena. I don't know, looking back on it, like I don't have any regrets. I'm not sure, if Andrew does, but I think we had like the right people fighting, right? Like my friend Tyrene Pamstein. So she, anytime like he was left off a graphic or they had wrong information that was being shown on whatever network, we had like an army of people there ready to fight. And so like I did see it, but I just couldn't be bothered with it, honestly. That was my take on it anyway. Did I answer your question? Yeah. I think I was.
Yeah, it's just that like that's good, but I think a big thing, because Andrew had all the logic and the common sense and the intelligence. The only thing he was missing was the name recognition. Yeah. And I thought that that's what the media industrial complex were really starving him of, because he would have been such a game changer.
Yeah. I think like the name recognition was huge, but also I think one of the things too was like being a newcomer to politics, like their like organization and structure was just like, we were like outgunned on every level. What my role as the backup driver, I was a part of what they call the advanced team. and the advanced team just gets the hotels and makes sure there's food for the for the team, and making sure like all the right people are in the right places at the right time. And like the Bernie Sanders campaign, like they were like someone said like 6 times larger than ours. And like 6, so like we had, I think there were like, we had like 6 people on that team, official campaign. And it was either Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden had like 36 people. So, we were an underdog, I knew. But when I started looking at like the numbers and the infrastructure in Iowa, wow. I mean, it was, and when it got down to like caucus night, and we needed precinct captains and things that I had no clue of how to do. I was learning on the go, right? I was flying the airplane as I was in it, or as I was building it, right, as they say. And like name recognition was certainly like a big thing, but I think also like the infrastructure and like the number of people who were working in these like small little towns in Iowa for their candidate, like we just didn't have that. We made a good shot at it, but I think as a campaign, and again, like I'm just a volunteer, right? So I don't have any insight to particular mindset, but if we do this again in 2024, I think that we will adjust some things, right? Like we will have learned some lessons from this experience and made our team more viable, right? That's my opinion, though. Just an opinion.
Right. Yeah, I think
we had,
right.
Most of us in the Yang Gang that were organized, like us in Arizona, we never stopped. When Yang suspended, we looked around and said, any of you guys want to stop? Nope. Okay, we're getting him elected whether he wants to or not. And we just kept doing that. And, we converted over to a 501c4 and started moving along and started encouraging other states to do the same. So
That's
the thing
awesome.
is with Andrew Yang is he inspired us to do something that no one else could. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about him is he didn't have to lead by creating a boogeyman for us to be afraid of. He didn't have to try to manipulate people into voting for him. He's being honest. He's saying, look, guys, this is the problem, and this is the most practical solution I can possibly find, and here's the data to back it up.
Yeah.
And it was inspiring, and it was the fact that he was so genuine with people that really got us to, like myself, a former disengaged voter, he really pulled us into the fold and said, look, learn about all this stuff. And we were learning on the fly as we went too, because we're like, okay, how do we get into delegate position? How do we support him better at the ground level? And I think the Yang Gang as a whole has probably gathered more collective experience and intel than
Angelo,
we could have even
he got the most name recognition when he dropped out.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, that's because he was no longer a threat, and everyone in the media wanted to buddy up to Andrew Yang because the Yang Gang were the ones that
it's all done on
CNN
purpose.
to apologize live on. This was before he dropped out. The Yang Gang got CNN, an international news station, to issue a public on-air apology to an underdog candidate that most of the public didn't even know about. How powerful is that?
I know.
I tell people you can't buy this kind of passion. It has to be earned.
Yeah, I can't think of any other presidential candidate that suspended their campaign who have their supporters like growing and like determined like, okay, like Andrew is no longer there, but we're still fighting. Like we're still here and we're not going away and we're growing. Right.
Yeah, that was one thing. I was during the campaign. I was really into social media metrics, right? So when Kamala Harris dropped out, the next day she lost 15,000 Twitter followers. Just poof, gone. They're like just done with her. But when Yang dropped out, every day it was like close to a month. Just it was always like a net positive in the ballpark of like of at least 1,000 people. new subscribers. That was like, whoa, this is different, guys. This guy is going to be going places, and here we are.
Yeah, it was like a phenomenon, right?
Right.
Like I think that people, like, once he was out, they were like, okay, now I want to know about him, because I was just rejecting him as a possible winner of the primary, but now I want to know what everyone was talking about. And I have friends that are like, wow, like now they're on board, right? Ooh, there's a deer right here. Let's see. Can you see?
Oh,
wow.
Bill, what part of the country are you in?
She's drinking out of the water. I am in the Oakland Hills right now. So I am in Oakland, California. Yeah, this is.
Oh.
Yeah, so Oakland. So if you see the map of the Bay Area, you've got San Francisco, and you've got Oakland, and then you've got a mountain range, and so that's the Oakland Hills. If you remember, like it burned down in, I think it was 97, maybe 95, like the Oakland Hills fire. So it's not the urban part of Oakland. And I've been here. I've been here for 27 years. I'm here. So I'm originally from Bronx, New York, and I lived in the Bronx and in St. Louis growing up. And then another addition, maybe another reason why I was asked to be the bodyguard. I did play professional hockey. I was a hockey player. And I played in Iowa, and that's how I had my Des Moines connections. And I played in Canada, and I played in Europe for a couple of years before I moved to California and became a teacher.
That's a very impressive life experience, man.
Well, it's eclectic, right? It's like, wait, like you are a kindergarten teacher and a hockey player? I'm like, well, I also dance Argentine tango. Like, there's a lot. There are lots of layers.
I think like that's what the Yang Gang is like, we're so diverse, and we're so have our interests in like so many different places, and like that's what separated us in this presidential campaign, is that we weren't your regular cookie cutter kind of campaign. We're like the most interesting.
Yeah, and I find it also interesting is, like, I have always voted, and my degree is in political science, and I really was fascinated with political philosophy, and still am. But I just voted. Like, that was my contribution to the political process, and talk to friends, but I never donated before. Right? I never volunteered before. Like, all of the things that I did, like, I've never done them before. And as a teacher, who's worried about the future, I think, like, well, what do we need to prepare kids for? I think we need to prepare kids to do things that have never been done before. So like, I'm doing it now. Like, and as you guys had mentioned too, right? Like, if in Arizona, like, I don't know how to get a delegate, like, so all the things that have happened in the last couple of years for me have never happened before in my life. So that's now there are some good lessons in there for me to share with my students. And it's not like, okay, today we're going to learn how to do something you've never done before. It's more like there are lots of problems in this world that have not been solved. And we were working hard to solve them, but we're going to need some help, right? And so to my students that are, growing up, now, with social media, like, I've got, my students are adults now with kids, right? I could have their kids in my classroom. So, they're watching me, they're like, yeah, I'm still going, I'm still a teacher, like, I'm still an athlete. And a lot of the things that we talked about in class are still important to me. So, kindness and empathy and patience and dedication and hard work. Like, I can see it, like, as an athlete, I can see the results of my work. And I think a lot of people don't have that opportunity. Like if they're in a job that they don't like, right? And every day they go to it, it perhaps is, it's paying their bills. So like they're on, on the hierarchy of needs that we keep talking about, the pyramid, like the bottom level, part of those are being fulfilled. But like, how do you get to the top? How do you get to that self-actualized part of the pyramid? And I think when you follow things that are really important to you, and it's a cliche to say to follow your dreams. It's not really like that. It's just like, if you're interested in something, then you have an opportunity to really dedicate yourself, and then you see the results of your work. And if the results of what you're interested in also can be tied into like a greater purpose, then you now are operating in that higher point of the pyramid on the hierarchy of needs. So as an educator, to me, if that could happen, like then the world could actually change, right? So it's we have a lot of work ahead of us, I know, and my students, like I gain inspiration from them. I gain inspiration from the Yang Gang and Andrew himself. So, and we're in a tough time. Wow, like it's going to be hard, right? Like I really, as an empathetic person, you realize that there's so much suffering going on in the world. And for a long time, I didn't know how I could alleviate it beyond, my students and my friends and my teammates. But now being here with you guys and, with the greater, Yang Gang across the country and the world, I feel like inspired, right? I feel like, wow, I'm working towards something and I can see the results of my work. So I hope that can happen with everyone else.
Yeah, that's great. That I think that's what the UBI kind of is in that point. It's like a foundation. So if you do actually chase something that has meaning for you in your life, you don't have this thing in the back of your mind that you're just risking everything and you can just end up just like with zero, because that's that's so wrong. And especially in this day and age where we have all of this abundance, we don't need this artificial scarcity to be worrying everybody. I think in the Constitution we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
But if you hit like zero, and you're enslaved to this work that just has you doing it just so you can live and survive, then where's that pursuit of happiness?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And I think like in that part of in the pursuit of happiness, I think it's towards like a greater happiness, right? So like you can have your individual happiness, but I think like in order for us to be truly happy as a society, we need more people having access to that opportunity to achieve, to chase things that make them happy. So UBI, it just makes so much sense to me because of what we are able to produce as a country, right? Like we don't all have wealthy parents and grandparents. We don't have we all don't have generational wealth, and it's not as if like I want to just take all of the wealth that these other families have created, I guess, but it's more that the idea of poverty and the idea that it still exists in our country is really sad. And you can see it, right? If you in New York City, where I'm originally from the Bronx, and I saw some videos of food lines, right, in the Bronx, like blocks long, and I was just thinking, wow, like we have farmers that are like dumping out their milk and killing their livestock because they can't get it to the market. At the same time, we have people in lines blocks long that are running out of food, and others that are ordering from Instacart. Like there's something like fundamentally wrong when this is happening, and I think that this pandemic has exposed some of the real tragic lives that people are experiencing at this moment. And as a person who's calling for humanity forward, I had one person tell me they had just come from a food bank. They had run out of food, and she was just like at her wit's end. And me, like as an individual, helping her get $250 microgram, it's like, it wasn't a lot, but like she was like in tears telling me like how thankful she was. And then like, it's hard, right? It's just like, it's so heartbreaking to realize that we have so much wealth in this country, yet so many people that are still suffering. Like there are in other parts of the world, like this doesn't happen. And I know, like we use Scandinavia as an example a lot, and I do realize that they're small, homogeneous countries, but like this is America, right? Like maybe we should do better than those countries. Like I was in Denmark and walking around Copenhagen recently, and just thinking like, where are all the poor people? How come everyone is so calm? And someone had told me that I think I was it Norway? I think it was in Norway when they had won like the happiest country on the planet, right? The metrics that determine people's happiness. And they said it shouldn't be the happiest, because they're not like jumping around all smiling and like, yeah, I'm so happy. That's not it. They said that we should be considered the most content country, because like healthcare, everyone has access to healthcare, right? And even prenatal, right? And when a baby is born, like everyone gets like a basket of goods that they go home with. It's like really, like you get like a basket, and you have access to doctors, nurses, social workers, mental health experts. You go to school and they say, well, some high schools, they don't have big like sports teams. Like for us, I'm not sure your experience, but as an athlete growing up, like my high school hockey team, like that was big, right? When I played college hockey, like we put so much emphasis on professional sports. And they said, well, like if you're in Denmark, you can play soccer. You just don't play soccer for your high school, right? Like you can do all the things that I did here. It just wasn't a part of the education. Like everyone had access to free college. Could you imagine? And they didn't have to worry about their retirement. So if you didn't have to worry about retirement, and you didn't have to worry about healthcare, and you didn't have to worry about education, think about that pyramid that we were talking about, right? So now all of the bottom level of that pyramid has been satisfied, and now you can become self-actualized. Like it's not so difficult for me to imagine that what could happen in Scandinavia, and also like I was in Australia and I was in New Zealand this year as well. Those countries too, they are not worried about the same things that we are worrying about, and therefore they have a higher like happiness index. So, and I'm not moving to those countries, by the way, even though I have friends in all of them. Like I'm not giving up on this country.
So I have to ask, just did you ever encounter any of our overseas Yang Gang while you were there?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I was in Amsterdam, and I also had I have an Instagram account called Travels with Andrew. So I have pictures of me in Amsterdam with Yang Gang Amsterdam, and I have a friend in Thailand, in Chiang Mai, who her name is Danny Lees, and she's on Twitter. She does Yang Speaks. Like she did a lot of quotes for him and promotes Andrew Yang in Thailand. And I stayed 2 weeks. That's I was telling you about the rice barn that I stayed in. So I stayed in the rice barn, and we listened to Andrew Yang on podcasts. And I think there was a debate one night. And so yeah, a lot of places. When I was in Bali, and I was just like Uber drivers everywhere. Like I went, I if I mentioned Andrew Yang, like a lot of people like knew who he was. And like my friend in Amsterdam, he was telling me that they were rooting so hard for Andrew because the world follows what the United States does. Like, even though like we are, even though, you know, we don't have the greatest healthcare system or the greatest education system, like we still are like the country that people look to for leadership and for role models, right? So yeah, so I was the International Yang Gang is alive and well. I was in Berlin hanging out. We went and saw an automated bus. We took pictures with an automated bus that came by. And yeah, that was a big part of my trip. And I wasn't planning on it. I started this trip planning 3 years ago. So it was before I met Andrew, and before I started volunteering. But when the trip started coming together, I'm like, oh, I should just like meet up with Yang supporters all around the world. So we did. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
And I think despite America's shortcomings, one thing that gives me hope with our country, when you were speaking about the normal experience in some of these European nations, America is still a very young country. Yeah. And like we were talking about before, we are building the airplane as we fly. Yeah.
Yes, it's a good analogy. I like that analogy a lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anything is possible. Anything, especially UBI.
Oh, yes. For sure. I think that this is the perfect time for us to lay down the groundwork for Andrew's 2024 run and just have all of the pieces in place. And it's just going to be a cakewalk. I think once the name recognition is there and everything like that, and then like this pandemic and this social unrest has now made the biggest case for everything we were fighting for. If this had happened like 2 months ago, it would be a whole different ball game. But I mean, we're still well on our way now.
Yes, 100%.
All right, Bill.
We have had a chance to see a glimpse of what a better future can look like. And I think through this campaign, everyone in the Yang Gang realized just how powerful we really are and how close we were to having that future be a reality. And that is something that we're not willing to give up. That is a dream that is worth fighting for, and we're fighting every day for it.
Yeah, I mean that's how Andrew ended his book, right? Come fight with me. Like every time, like I just like get goosebumps when I read it. You've come to the top of the mountain and you can see what's possible. So, but you've got to like get up, everybody. It's time to fight, and I'm definitely in the fight. And I just think we just need to be brave and courageous, because it's scary out there, right? Like we don't have to not be fearful, because actually, like, I want to be fearful. Like put me in a position where I'm not 100% confident, like, because I want to see what I'm made of, like as a jiu-jitsu athlete, like I want the best people in the world, like I joke around, like I've lost to some really big names in some of my matches, but like the moments that I was there, I was like, yeah, I deserve to be here. Like I've worked hard, and now this is what I've accomplished, and now I'm putting myself up against the best in the world. And that's what Andrew did too, and that's what we're doing as a Yang Gang team. So we are still the underdogs, right? We still are going to have a lot of failure, right? Like fail often, I forget the quote, but like failing, we can't be afraid of that either, right? Like we're going to have people that don't win their primaries and that don't win their general elections. But the continuation of just promoting what we believe in, I think will eventually bring us victory. I think so. I believe it.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
All
Fail
right.
forward. Yeah.
True.
Fail forward.
Fail forward.
Yes, yes.
All right, Bill. We're a little bit past time.
Okay.
But
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, man. This talk has been great.
Been awesome.
All right. So Bill, where
Stay in
can
touch.
folks where can folks find you at, man?
So you can just find, like, I don't have my own website or anything, but follow me on Twitter. Is like, that's probably like the thing that I'm on probably most as far as social media. So like at Bill Hodder. The term cash bill is you can also find me there on Instagram, Travels with Andrew, Facebook, Bill Hodder. So that's pretty much, although getting a website, that's probably something I should do. Because I've been asked this, like, how can people reach you? I'm like, well, I don't want to give you my personal phone number, but follow me on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, dude, you would make a killing as a blogger or a YouTube vlogger. I mean, Jesus, man, it's like, I'd watch that shit.
Got some stories.
Cool. All right, man. Hey, thank you again 1,000 times over for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And if there's anything that the Roundtable can do to support the Actions for Humanity Forward or any of the other projects the Yang Gang has going on, please let us know, and we will try to bullhorn that information out.
Awesome. Definitely appreciate your help and appreciate what you guys are doing. You have an important role.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. All right, man. Well, I guess with that, we'll go ahead and sign off. So, all
right.
Cool. All right. Thanks again, man. All
Thanks,
right.
guys. All right, bye-bye.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Yang Gang Roundtable podcast. We'll do some quick sign-offs here. Angelo, you want to shout out your Twitter? Oh, did we lose Angelo?
Angelo, are you there? Oh, wait.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm muted, sorry. So, yeah, my name is Angelo Mendoza. You can find me at Hellion Hellfire on Twitter.
All right, Ariel.
My name is Ariel. You can find me on at Ariel's _ Armada. That's ARIELS _ARMADA. I'm also Revolutionary Thinking on YouTube. And if you like awesome drone videos and drone shots, I am Ariels, that's ARIELS _ Aerials, that's AERIELS on Instagram.
I'm so glad that's now a thing, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I am Jeremy. You can find me on Twitter at Jeremy Sammons1. That is JeremySammons and the number 1. And once again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bill. And we will see you all next time.